He sucked and bit at Trip's mouth and chin and throat with a hunger that tore Trip open with spikes of heaven and involuntary shudders. Trapped against his inner thigh, his bulge strained against the denim. Trip chuckled and bit back. Silas didn't complain. Not so terrible after all. Silas's rough, clever fingers plucked at Trip's nipples, and then he squirmed closer. Those huge arms enfolded Trip without permission or patience. Silas gritted his teeth and groaned, "Mistake. I don't. Head shake. I gotta." His rigid cock held the fur waistband a little open. Wait. Slow down. He took his own advice. Shoulder to elbow, he stroked Trip gently, reverently, but the crazed grappling stopped. Trip stayed put, not wanting to break the spell. He counted his breaths. Silas held Trip's head lightly with one hand, pulled their faces together and planted a kiss on him. No tongues, no slobbering, just a firm, open-mouthed kiss that blew out the back of Trip's head. Kerpow! Abandoning his better judgment, Trip couldn't help but kiss back, tilting his head to get closer and wrapping his wiry arms around all that brown to pull it closer. His erection rubbed Silas's bare abs through 2 layers of cotton. An answering ramrod tinted the hairy He-Man briefs. Silas retreated, dazed and lazy. Wow. Okay. He exhaled in a near laugh. I'm trying to be a gentleman. Trip gulped and nodded, but his tongue was too stunned to speak. He couldn't get a handle on anything. Worse, he didn't care. He had no map and he didn't want one. If this was fucking up, he was all for it. He blinked. Was that bad? Silas pulled away with deliberate slowness. I promise. I'm gonna say goodnight. Sorry, I suck at dating, obviously. Who told you that? You're making me stupid. He held Trip's shoulders gently but definitely. I gotta get inside before I get dumber. He still blocked them from any prying passers-by. Jesus, Trip. Trip wedged himself against the door, completely in darkness, not wanting to leave, knowing he should. He couldn't figure out what he was supposed to do or want or have. Glitter streaks covered them. Thud, thud, thud. Heartbeats in the dark. They inhaled and exhaled raggedly. The amber lamplight backlit Silas, shadowing his rugged face. The barbarian chest rose and fell, framed in the open navy coat. His hands chased Trip's shivers tentatively over his clothes. The calluses caught the cotton. Better now. He kissed Trip softly. Sorry, I got carried away. I jumped you, remember? No script. True. Silas petted him with nitroglycerin patience. Arms, ribs, ass, chest. Fuck, like a Shalini. Trip exhaled and tried to get a hold of his body. As always, Silas's nearness drugged him and slowed time to a syrupy crawl. Trip's eyes closed and his hands twitched involuntarily as the drowsy surrender stole over him. Relentless and patient, Silas found his way back to Trip's nipples, tugging gently but firmly on them with his scarred fingers, and rucked the shirt over his pecs. That hurt? Trip grunted and arched. Feels. He flinched when Silas pinched a little harder. Silas whispered, so sensitive. He rucked up the shirt again. I never noticed him before when people pinched him. I mean, what was happening to him? Trip felt terrified and triumphant at the same time. Not sensitive, I guess. He trembled. I think we'll have to agree to disagree. Silas licked one thumb and then the other and put them back to work. The wet scrape against his nipples sent a scatter of shocks through Trip's nervous system. Silas pushed his arms around Trip. The hot skin of their abdomens pressed together and rubbed himself against the crisp trail that led into Trip's trousers. Silas lapped at Trip's tongue and only pulled back to breathe heavily. His eyes stayed half-lidded and happy. He whispered, "You okay there?" Trip shook his head side to side slowly, but the slippery words wouldn't congeal in his mind. The winter air should have chilled him, but it didn't. His eyes should have itched from the wool coat or the glitter, but nothing. Everything smelled like vanilla bourbon, like Silas, and the world moved around him in trickle time. He choked. Oh my! His shaft jerked out of control, a squeeze or two from squirting. Apparently, he never kissed anyone, or else he'd only practiced with amateurs. Why, yes, Laura.
I threw in a question. If you're going to do an audiobook, you should
Charlie David does all my audio recordings, and he's an old friend. I've written movies for him. And Charlie was a fan of Hothead before he knew I wrote it, but he didn't know I was Damon Suede. So when he found out, he was like, oh my god, can I read your book? And I was like, yeah. So the thing is, Charlie does, if y'all know the Hothead recording, it's a really good recording, and he's very wonderful too. So it's, so yeah, I thank you. That's very sweet. I'll do one for you especially.